Imagine waking up to find your beloved boat missing, and then discovering your friendly HOA neighbor is the mastermind behind its disappearance. Trust me, you won't believe what happened next. I still remember that chilly Saturday morning like it was yesterday. I'd woken up early, excited to spend a few peaceful hours tending to my boat, my pride and joy before heading out into the open water. Living in a gated community had its perks, and my private dock was my little slice of heaven where I could escape the hustle and bustle of everyday life. But little did I know, that day would become the epic tale of how an entitled HOA Karen tried to turn my quiet life into a chaotic adventure. For those who don't know me, I'm a Coast Guard commander with over a decade of experience at sea. I'd seen rough waters and unruly storms, but nothing prepared me for the storm brewing on dry land. A storm in the form of one particular neighbor. Yes, I'm talking about the infamous HOA Karen who made it her mission to police every little detail in our pristine community. Over the past few months, Karen had made it abundantly clear that she wasn't a fan of my boat. She complained about its aesthetics, argued that it didn't belong in our upscale neighborhood, and even insinuated that owning a private dock was an unfair privilege. I tried to ignore her tirades, chalking it up to typical small-town drama. After all, I had seen my fair share of difficult people, and I believed that silence was the best answer. But sometimes silence only makes a person bolder. That fateful morning began like any other until I reached my dock. I was greeted not by the familiar sight of my gleaming boat, but by an eerie emptiness. My heart pounded as I scanned the area. The ropes that normally secured my vessel were sliced clean through, and in their place, the water lapped ominously against the dock. My mind raced through possibilities. Had I forgotten where I left it? Could this be a simple mix-up by the condo management? No, it was too deliberate to be a mistake. I grabbed my cell phone and quickly accessed the boat's onboard GPS tracker. The screen lit up with a blinking. My boat was moving away from the dock. The realization hit me hard. Someone had taken it without my permission. And knowing our neighborhood's notorious reputation, I had a sinking suspicion of who it might be. Before I could dwell on it any longer, I remembered a snippet of conversation from the previous week. Mr. Thompson, another neighbor, had mentioned that he saw Karen near the dock the night before. It wasn't much, but in retrospect, it was the clue I needed. I jumped in my car and sped off to the Coast Guard base. Even though I was the one in charge, sometimes pride doesn't let you let a personal slight slide. I reached the base and briefed my colleagues on the situation. To my relief and slight amusement, they were as incredulous as I was. "You're telling me your neighbor stole your boat?" One of them chuckled. I didn't have time for banter, though I had to act fast. Within minutes, we were organizing a response. We hopped into a patrol boat, following the GPS signal that led us further out into the open water. The closer we got, the more absurd the situation became. There, bobbing helplessly in the middle of the sea, was my boat, drifting aimlessly like a forgotten toy. And on board, no one could have been less prepared for the open water than the culprit herself. I switched my radio to a calm yet authoritative tone. "This is the United States Coast Guard. Identify yourself immediately," I said. The reply was a mix of frantic stammers and incoherent pleas. "Oh my God, please help me," came the voice, trembling as if she'd just encountered a sea monster. It was clear Karen was in over her head. She had no idea how to maneuver a boat, and the panic in her voice was a testament to that. When we finally closed in, the scene could have easily been mistaken for a low-budget comedy. There she was, HOA Karen, looking every bit as disheveled as you'd imagine a person who'd just taken a joyride on a high-performance vessel without any training would. Her hair was a tangled mess, and sweat dripped down her face like she'd run a marathon. She clutched the steering wheel as if it were an alien contraption, completely out of her element. I approached her calmly. "Ma'am, you're in possession of a boat that doesn't belong to you," I stated firmly. Her eyes widened in horror, and I could see the arrogance that had once filled her with self-importance crumbling right before my eyes. She tried to mumble something about it being a misunderstanding, but her words were drowned out by her rising panic. One of my colleagues couldn't help himself and chuckled over the radio. "You really thought you could just borrow a Coast Guard commander's boat, huh? He joked. I had to keep my composure. This wasn't about humor now, it was about responsibility and justice. I explained to her that what she had done wasn't a minor misunderstanding, but a serious offense: theft and illegal operation of a vessel without proper training. I could see her mental gears grinding as she tried to process the gravity of the situation. After a brief, tense exchange, we boarded the boat. The journey back to shore was nothing short of surreal. Karen sat silently, eyes fixed on the water, as if she were trying to dissolve into the ocean. The boat, which had been so full of life moments ago, now moved under the steady, expert control of my colleague. Meanwhile, Karen's frantic attempts to explain herself only deepened the absurdity of it all. Once we docked, the real consequences began to take shape. An officer was already waiting, ready to document the incident and register her for the formal complaint that I would be filing. She tried everything to weasel her way out of it afterward. First, she sent frantic messages claiming she wanted to resolve everything amicably. Then, she appealed to the HOA to intervene, hoping that their influence might somehow sway the outcome. Finally, when all else failed, she offered money as if that could cover up the fact that she'd taken my boat without permission. But for me, it wasn't about money. It was about principle and justice. The case went forward, and predictably, the legal system had no tolerance for such blatant disregard of personal property. She was ordered to pay hefty fines, cover legal fees, and was even banned from coming anywhere near my property or my boat. But perhaps the most damaging blow to her pride was yet to come. The story of her misadventure spread like wildfire throughout the community. In a place where reputation mattered more than gold, her status was irreparably tarnished. Once revered as a force to be reckoned with in HOA meetings, she soon became the laughingstock of our neighborhood. In the aftermath, I took a moment to reflect. Life as a Coast Guard commander taught me that the sea holds many surprises, but sometimes the most unexpected storms come from the shore. That day, I learned that actions have consequences and that no one is above the law, regardless of how important they believe they are. It wasn't just about protecting my boat, it was about upholding a standard of respect and accountability that our community desperately needed. To this day, whenever I look at my reinforced dock and the high-performance boat secured safely by state-of-the-art technology, I'm reminded of that surreal day. A day when a petty act of entitlement was met with swift justice, and when an HOA Karen learned a lesson in humility the hard way. So, if there's one thing I want you to take away from this story, it's this: respect for others' property and following the rules isn't just common courtesy, it's the foundation of a civilized community. And sometimes, the universe has a funny way of ensuring that everyone gets their just desserts. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it serves as a reminder that no matter how high you think you are, the tides of justice are always ready to turn. Stay safe and remember, never underestimate the power of a well-timed Coast Guard intervention.